Definitely.
So welcome, Kurt.
Thank you. Thanks for
We are
having me.
doing it live. We're just having a good time. This is my bro, and I wanted everyone to be able to hear his story. So yeah,
Yeah.
just go for it. He's got a
Thanks.
story to share.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So I was working for I dropped out of college, moved to LA, and was working for a tech company. It's going pretty well. In 2018, I was in a car accident. I was hit by a drunk driver, and I was in a coma for 6 days. They didn't know why I wouldn't wake up. I think it was because God was doing some work on me, but I have no evidence. After I woke up, I was in the hospital for hospital and rehab center for 2 months, and I was kind of like, I was crazy when I first woke up. I thought I was president and was married with kids and in the special forces and all this crazy stuff. But ever since I woke up, like, I snapped out of that, obviously, and I was kind of like 10-Second Tom from 50 First Dates or Dory from Finding Nemo.
Okay.
So my mom had to write on a piece of paper and put it in front of my bed. She wrote, "Kurt, don't get up because you'll fall and you broke your leg." Because I kept asking her, I was like, "Why's my leg hurt?" She said, "Because you broke it."
Yeah.
I go, "What? How did that happen?" "You were in a car accident." "What?" And then like 5 minutes later, just kind of rinse and repeat. So I was in rehab for hospital and rehab for 2 months, and then and while I was in rehab, so I lost over a decade of memory. They told me to describe the house that I lived in, and I described the house that I grew up in until I was 13. And I had some of the best care in the world. And what they would do is they would play things or have me exercise my memories. I don't know how to put this. One of the things that my mom did was she moved into the hospital to take care of me, and she told the nurses that I was obsessed with NF, and NF has been my favorite artist since I was in high school.
Super dope rapper. By the way.
Yep. Since he dropped Therapy Session, and my little brothers showed him to me, and I've been obsessed ever since. I knew at the time, I probably knew every single word to every song on Therapy Session, and I'm not sure if he dropped Perception yet, but yeah, they would play his music, and it would bring back my memory. He became part of my therapy, and they would, like, one of the things they'd do is they'd have me do certain activities, brain activities, and they would have music on.
And they would play the NF music.
Yep.
And then it would help you remember things.
Yeah. Yeah, it helped.
Wow.
Yeah, it exercised my memory, and it also was they had to practice divided attention. Like, they had to train me to be able to focus on one thing in spite of distraction. Sure. So they would have his music, and my mom has said, I don't remember pretty much anything in the hospital, but my mom said that they would put on his music, and I would try and focus, but they would have to kind of jump me back in because I kept getting lost in the music, Yeah.
That's crazy. So
yeah.
You had real therapy.
Real therapy.
Session.
NF was part of my therapy session.
Yeah, that's powerful. Man.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And so what's it been like moving on since then with your injury?
Yeah, so ever since I was raised in church. I always believed in God, and I could logically prove to you He existed. Ever since I woke up, I've just had this sense that this is not my home, and I went on this pursuit of God over the next, like, I got out of inpatient therapy, but I was in outpatient rehab for the next 6 months, and in that time, I couldn't remember a full day for about a year. But I went on this pursuit of God, and, I found Dr. Clay Jones, who absolutely changed my life. And he solves the problem of evil and suffering, and in a couple sentences, it's really mind blowing. But, yeah, I've just been chasing after him ever since. He just feels so close,
Yeah.
and I can't explain it. But yeah, it's all I want to do is tell people about Jesus.
That's amazing, man.
I went from building a tech company, or helping to build a tech company, trying to solve parking in LA, and now I'm just like, I just want to tell people about Jesus, and then one day I get to meet him.
Well, here's your chance. Here's your chance to tell people about Jesus on this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
We heard your story. We heard, some of the rehab and the stuff you went through. Um, what do you have to say now going forward? You did Bible school, correct?
Yeah.
You did, and then yeah,
Yeah, I'm in Jesus school. I just call it Jesus school.
that's all you gotta call it.
Yep. I just there's a Bible verse that says, one says I follow Paul, one says I follow Apollos, another I follow Cephas. Not necessarily in that order. I might be butchering it, but he says, follow me as I follow Christ. I'm just like, I'm a follower of Jesus. I just want to tell everyone about him. I think he's the greatest person who was, not just, I guess he was technically person, but also much more than
You'll
that.
get a test on it in school, right?
Yep. Yep.
I guess my question before we end the podcast is just like, my first initial thought is like, if there's anyone else that's dealt with trauma that might be listening, or even there might be people listening that have had a similar story or experience with themselves or family members that have been through brain trauma or crazy accidents or needing to do rehab. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why Clay Jones was so influential to me, is he helped me understand suffering and the eternal role that suffering plays in the world. And he says in a couple sentences, he says this life will exist as an eternal reminder of the consequences of rebellion against God. He says when we continue to honor God through suffering, we are justifying God's judgment of Satan and his minions. And Paul writes in one of his letters to the churches, do you not know that you will judge angels? I never knew what that meant. I do now. So whenever I'm suffering, I just think, okay, well, this is my chance. This is my chance to honor God, to join with him in his suffering. And
It's a humble thing to say. Not easy to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't mean in any way to exalt, not that I'm in any way equivalent, but like Paul writes, we also glory in our sufferings just as he did. And that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character hope, and hope does not put us to shame. For his love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, which has been given to us. And I'd say John Lennox has a great speech called "God Does Exist." Very simple, poignant. I think poignant is the word I'm looking for. But where he says, if God is not real, then there is no. I'm going to misquote him, but he basically says, if God is not real, then there is no justice for the suffering of the innocent. We get no recompense. But if God is real, we will be redeemed, and we'll be rewarded in eternity, which is biblical. Yeah.
I can imagine what some comments might be on people watching this episode.
Yeah.
Because I think it opens up a can of worms of people. I think people, where they're at and when they've suffered tragedy or any kind of suffering, really, it can be a quick question of where was God at? Or where was my God at when, someone else who wasn't as fortunate maybe died in a car accident versus getting damaged and then being able to recuperate. Right, it's a blame game or a frustration of not understanding.
Yeah.
And so, but to have that perspective, to be honest, I'm still learning what it means to suffer and to know. Like, I don't know if I'm at that level where, like Paul says, I suffered for Jesus. I feel great, to die is gain, I'm not saying I'm ashamed. Like, I'll die for my faith and I love God, but but just still understanding day to day, like what that looks like, going through something that's super tragic, traumatizing, really. But man, I think you're a miracle, bro. Like you're standing here. You have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that you got to share that today with everybody, man. That's super cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah. Well,
I think that's it.
All right, groovy. I could talk for hours and hours, but there's
keep it sweet.
The synopsis.
Concise.
Yeah.
No, man. I think there's a lot to dive in from our conversation. So thanks for doing this podcast with me, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.